Welcome to the Financial Skills Workshop here at JBU. Today we're going to talk about budgeting and saving. We're going to talk about the Big Four. What is the Big Four? We're going to talk about stewardship supremacy. We're going to talk about budget or bust. We're going to talk about the lowdown on loans. There's a lot of different feelings about loans out there, and we're going to talk about some of those. Also, credit card confusion. There's a lot of conversation going around credit cards these days, whether they're good, whether they're bad, indifferent, and we're going to talk through some of that today. So, stewardship supremacy. God asks for 1/10 of his finances back for each paycheck that we receive. Everything that we're given is God's. All of our money, all of our resources, all of our time. It's our job to be good stewards of that. And I really believe that it's God's call in our life that we give back that 10% to him, because it's his money to begin with. We're giving him back just 10%, and he says you can keep the other 90%. A couple of really quick passages: Nehemiah 10:38. 1 Corinthians 16:2 and 2 Corinthians 9:7 talk about that requirement that God asks of us to give the first fruits, not our seconds, not our last. And in fact, in budgeting, my encouragement to you is to be a good steward of those finances. That when you think about tithing, that needs to be the first 10% that you carve out of the top, and the rest of it is yours to be able to budget with. But that first 10% should be a non-negotiable. Whether that's the 10% before or after taxes, that's your choice to decide. I'm not going to dictate that for you, but my encouragement for you is to make that a regular habit. God blesses his people in that way. I really firmly believe that. There have been times in my life and my wife's life where we've not had a lot of money. In fact, we still don't have a lot of money. But we are very faithful in making sure that even in the lean times, God has always gotten 10% of our resources. Keep God first before money. The rest will follow. If you become and make money your master, there's a lot of scripture that talks about that, but it will not help you. You need to keep God first, again, before money. Also, give cheerfully and beyond 10% when you can and when God blesses you. There may be certain things that you really feel passionate about supporting beyond that 10%. My wife and I sponsor a compassion child. We also really feel compelled to support a missionary family on a consistent basis. Again, we have to weigh those things out of our budget, but we really feel compelled that God has called us to do these things. The other thing I would encourage you to do is give back to your alma mater. Give back to JBU after you've graduated. Again, there will be a time frame where you have loans due. You are living on a shoestring budget, and I get that. But even $5 or $10, if you can give back to JBU, makes a huge difference in what JBU is able to do. We have many foundations, many other alumni out there, many community members. Their first question is, how many of your alumni give back to JBU? And it doesn't matter the amount. Again, it could be $5 or $10 a year. It's not a lot. But they want to know the percentage. And based on the percentage of who gives, they'll give millions of dollars to the institution, possibly based on that fact. So my encouragement to you is to know that even if you can't give much, if it's $5 or $10 for a year, do that much when you graduate. If you're able to do that, it will make a huge difference in the ability for JBU to continue to raise funds, again, with other partners, other foundations, other sources of revenue. So I would strongly encourage you to do that as you're able. Again, give back to JBU along the way. A little goes a long way. I give back to my alma mater. I even give to JBU. Yearly, I support JBU. I work here as a faculty member. I can assure you, and staff member, I don't make a lot. But I am always very consistent, knowing that the money that I give back to JBU and donate helps you guys as students. It helps JBU to do the mission of what we've set out to do in terms of impacting the head, heart, and hand and serving around the world. And I really believe in that mission statement. So that's why I give to JBU, even though I didn't graduate from JBU. Schedule. So for salaries, one of the things I get from students often is that, well, I don't need to make a lot. I just need to make $10 or $15 an hour, and I'm set for life. My challenge to you is to understand what $15 or $20 an hour will bring. For some of you, that's great. That's what you need to live on. But I want you to look at the salary schedule. So hourly wages are on the left-hand side. So you read it across at $8 an hour. Times 15 hours a week, times 20 hours a week, times 25, 35, then weekly, what is it that you would make? So if you work full-time, 40 hours a week, at $8 a week, you're going to make $320 a week, which annually is $16,000, which sounds like a lot, and it is a lot for you guys who are college students, or if you've never had a job before, that's significant. But the reality is, by the time taxes get taken out and insurance and other things that you're required to provide, you really are not left with a lot. Even at $20 an hour, your annual income is $41,000, and even at that, that's pushing it. Can you survive on it? Absolutely. You can survive on what you choose to, oftentimes. But even at that point, I want you to understand that $20 an hour still is doing very well, but it's not making millions of dollars by any means. So again, when you think about hourly work and hourly wages, that's a great thing to do. In fact, I talked to several students who want to work a job and want to be salaried. And my first question is, why do you want to be salaried? And they said, well, if I'm salaried, then I know how much I'm going to make, which there is truth to that. But with someone who works salary, you work overtime, you work extra hours. You may put in 80 hours a week for a 40-hour-a-week job salary-wise. If you work hourly, there is huge benefit that as soon as you cross 40 hours a week, the company is required to pay you overtime or time and a half. Oftentimes you get holiday pay and some other things that you don't get as a salaried employee. So make sure that you're also weighing that out when you think about taking jobs out there, that not everything is created equal. Just because it's salaried doesn't always mean that it's more money, depending on how hard you work and what you want to do in that context. Crown Financial is a really great resource for you. Crown.org is their website, and they've got some great salary schedules to be able to lay out for you. And they've kind of figured out in general for the American economy how much of a percentage you take out. So again, gross income, they would take out tithe before taxes. Taxes are 24% of your income. Taxes are 10%. And again, it kind of, for someone who's making about $16,000 for spendable income after tithe and tax, that you've got about $16,000 left out of that $23,000 budget. If you're living with a roommate, again, it allows you to adjust for housing and food if you're sharing those things. If you're able to, it's great to have a roommate to share some of those expenses with. But again, this is an idea for single adults living with a roommate. And then they've also got some schedules for you to figure out budget-wise how much should be in each one of your columns or each of your categories based on what you make. So this one happens to be for a family of two and a married couple. So I know some of you may be in that category as well. I know for myself personally, I keep an Excel budget. My wife and I are very determined to always know what we've spent for the month. As soon as we spend something, we always save the receipt, and then we come back into this budget and make sure that we say what it is that we spent it on. One of the biggest conflicts in marriage is our finances, and based around that, my wife and I have a commitment to saying any dollar we spend, we're going to tell each other. We're going to be as selfless as we can with our dollars, but also realizing that sometimes we need things and we need to give and take around that. So again, there's groceries, gas, entertainment, mortgage, water, electric, house, gas, cable, home, cell, compassion, child that we sponsor, tithe, medical insurance, medical costs, insurance costs, gifts, postage, taxes, vacations. All of that totals everything up at the bottom, and then our personal spreadsheet has a summary at the very end of the year to let us know in what areas or what categories did we spend too much, what areas did we spend less, here's where we're right on budget, but it helps us to project for the following year. Where do we need to cut things back? Where do we need to maybe increase a budget line because the gas prices went up, or electric prices went up, or cable prices always seem to go up. So that's the example of that one. Rules about budgeting. Spend less than you make. Spend quite a bit less than you make. It's amazing how there are incidentals that come up throughout the year. A tire blows out and you have to buy a new tire, or you get in an auto accident and you've got to have $500 that you weren't planning on to be able to deal with that. A family member passes away and you have to get to a funeral and travel to a funeral. Again, you have no idea what the future holds, but if you're always spending less than you make, you're always going to have some wiggle room and some margin to be able to do those things that you need to do. Buy a house or something that goes up in value, especially if you're going to stay. The rule of thumb for the housing market is that you at least need to be in the house for 5 years or more, plan to be there for 5 years or more before you buy. Otherwise, go rent. It is so much safer to rent, especially in the unstable marketplace that it seems to be here and here today specifically. But buy something that goes up in value. A car does not go up in value. Even your savings account goes up in value in small increments, but that's a way to do that. If you're going to work and invest in the stock market, that's another great place to invest, but you need to have a long-term perspective in mind. The market is going to go up and down every day, and you can't pull money in and out of the stock market or you're inevitably going to probably lose. My encouragement is if you invest long-term, put the money in there and don't touch it until it comes due. Find a roommate to share rent with and food costs with. It's great if you can share rent, share utilities, share cable, share food with, and for you guys to participate together. There are great websites out there, and churches often will have websites to allow you to find a roommate that shares similar interests and values. A lot of times our community organizations or groups or just talking with people saying, hey, I'm looking for a roommate. It's a great way to save some money and be able to live within your means. Diversify your savings. Don't put everything in a savings account. Right now they're unbelievably poor in terms of the interest you'll earn or accrue. But think about some bonds. Think about savings and certificates of deposit or CDs. Think about investing in the stock market or a mutual fund. Think about putting things away long term in the IRA account. With the IRA, things go in as tax dollars and therefore they come out without having to pay taxes. That's huge when it comes to compound interest, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, maximize your employer contribution to your 401k. That's a retirement account is what a 401k is. And I would encourage you, if your employer says we'll match 10% of your income, or we'll give you $5,000 for every $5,000 you put in, whatever they're willing to match, you at least need to put in that much. Because if you don't, that's free money that someone else is going to get, and you've lost out majorly. It takes a long time to build that up. Also, I know that as you come out of college, you may not have a lot of money, but even if it's $100 a year or $50 a year to start out with, put something away in your retirement account. Don't let those dollars go unaccrued. Again, compound interest is huge. If you put in $100 a month from now until you retire, you will be a millionaire just by the money that you put in your savings account. Again, $100 a month for some of us is way beyond what we're able to do. But if your employer matches anything, you at least need to match what your employer puts in to start with. Also, save for kids' retirements, vacations. Don't finance those things. Make sure that you're saving for them in advance, and that way when the time comes for you to be able to take a vacation or go and retire, that you've saved along the way so that you can do that well. Learn the power of compound interest. So we're going to talk about a quick lesson. I know some of you hate numbers, some of you hate math. I'm going to try to make this as basic as I can. So here are some numbers on the left-hand side. So 50, 40, 30, 25. These are the ages that you start investing. The start age, if you started investing at 50 and you retired at age 65, if you put in $100 a month and the compound interest was 6%. For a savings account, you're not going to get 6% right now. In fact, I think you're going to get about 0.01, 0.05%, 0.06 maybe. But at this point, you put in 180 payments from starting at age 50 to 65 per month. What you invest, your principal, what you actually paid out was $18,000, or would be $18,000. The account value, so the amount that it will be, is $29,000. So those 180 payments in 15 years, you will have earned $11,000 in interest. That's pretty practical. In fact, I would even say that's conservative if you're investing in the stock market in a mutual fund that's really well balanced. If you're investing in a 401k plan for long-term investments, and you've got an aggressive growth strategy for that, it would be way more than 6% compounded interest over that time frame. So let's take a look then. If you started at age 25, which most of you are right around that age, and you retired at age 65, you have made a 480 payments of $100, which is $48,000. So $48,000 over that time frame is what you actually physically put into the account. The account value is almost $200,000, and the interest that you will have earned is $151,000 is what interest you would have earned. That's free money. That's money you didn't have to work with. You didn't have to work for. It wasn't out of a paycheck that you earned that interest. It was free money because your money worked for you in that instance. So again, if you're able to save $100 a month, and again, that's compounded at 6%. Most of the IRAs right now are somewhere around 12% or more, which again, when you think about interest compounded over that, it won't just be $151,000. Again, you're looking at more like about $1 million if you're able from the time you start working at about age 25 all the way to 65, putting in $100 faithfully a month until you get to that retirement age. And again, I know the retirement age is going to keep creeping up, so the longer you can do that in there, that compound interest will be that much more fruitful down the road. Lowdown on loans. Loans always have a grace period. This is the time before you have to start repaying the loans, and typically it's a 6-month period. When you are finished with your education, if you don't defer and go on to grad school education somewhere, you're able to defer your loans as long as you're a full-time student. As soon as you leave JBU or you graduate, or you're done with graduate school, you have to start repaying your loans after that 6-month grace period. But they say we want to give you 6 months to get up on your feet to find a job. Your job is to go find a job during that time frame, and then all of a sudden your loans will start coming due. During that time, within your loan package, some of you have subsidized loans, which means that the government is paying your interest on those loans while you've been at college. They've not been accruing interest. Those have been great loans for you to hold, sometimes for 4 years, sometimes for 8 or 12 if you go on to get a doctorate somewhere. And so, again, subsidized loans are ones that you want to leave in there and leave in deferment as long as possible. There's also unsubsidized loans. Those are loans that you are always accumulating interest. You want to bring those out of deferment as quickly as you can to start paying them down and getting rid of those as soon as you can. Again, both of those are the two types of loans that are typically loaned to you as a student. Consolidation. After you're done with your school, your loans start to go into repayment. You've got that 6 months of grace period. And during that time, you're going to get offers in the mail that say, will you consolidate your loans with us? Your job during that time is to understand what consolidation means. It means all of your loans, some of you will have taken out a loan for every year you were here at JBU, and consolidation means that they'll roll them into one payment instead of having to pay 4 different loans for each month. It'll roll them into one payment, and then you get one payment to pay off for the life of that loan. Banks make money in managing your interest because they get paid. Same way you have compound interest with your savings, they get compound interest with your loans. So your job is to pay them off as quickly as you can and as aggressively as you can. With consolidation, it puts it all in one amount. It also can only be done once, so you must choose wisely. Once you consolidate, you cannot do that again, so you need to shop around. Look at who will offer you the lowest rate, even shop between loan providers. If Wells Fargo says we'll give you the loans at 4%, go and see if you can get Chase Morgan to give you 3% or 3.5% interest on those loans. Whatever you lock it in at, it needs to be a fixed rate, not a variable rate, so that it locks in for the life of your loan. And the lower that you can get that, the better off you'll be in the long run. Load out on loans. So this is kind of how a loan works. You see $10,000 at the top, 0 at the bottom, and then years 1, starting year 1 and year 30. This was if you had a $135,000 loan, so this is probably more like a house loan, and you had it over 6 or 30 years at 6% interest. That's pretty typical. this is how you would pay off your loan. So in year one, you're going to pay $10,000 in that, and only about $1,900 is actually going to go towards your principal. Everything else goes to just paying the interest on that loan. Whereas you kind of work it, there's that arc with it to where year 30, 100% of that $10,000 is actually paying off the principal. So what you want to do with a loan, whether that's a home loan, a car loan, a student loan, whenever you can pay additional money in on that, you pay down the principal, which shortens the life of your loan. School loans typically have about a 10-year maturation date for them, so you've got 10 years after you're done or when you start repayment to paying it off. If you could pay extra, it'll bring that down dramatically toward the end, because more of your principal is being paid off, which means that, again, that compound interest gets broken down for you that way. $150,000 loan at 6% interest in 30 years. Monthly payment, so if you were to just pay the basics on that, you're going to pay about $900 per month in monthly payments for that loan over 30 years. The total payout for your $150,000 loan is $323,000. So think about that. When you go to buy a house, even though it's going to go up in value, which again, it's great to be a homeowner. For some of you, that's great. Again, it can be an investment if you sell it for more than what you paid for it. But just know that for your loan, if you take out $150,000 with no down payment, you're essentially going to pay $323,000 on that note by the time it comes due, which is huge. However, if you can add just $50, $50 a month is all, not a lot, just a little bit at a time, you actually only pay out $297,000, which still is a lot, but you essentially save yourself $26,000. It's $26,000 on that loan that's in your pocket after you're done paying off the loan, because you just paid $50 extra a month. That applies to school loans. It definitely applies to car loans, anything with a high interest rate, credit cards. The more you can pay, just a little bit more a month will make a huge difference in the long run of that loan. Here's why you don't want to finance. If you have a debt of $4,000, so you decide, hey, I want to go get a car, I'm going to get a good used car, $4,000, your minimum payment would be $83 a pay period or a month typically. If you go to finance in credit cards or cars, your interest rate will at least be 17%, most likely closer to 21%, just for your information. So within that context, if you only paid the minimum, it would take you 29 years, and you would actually pay them $13,000 to pay it off if you just paid the minimum. That's how you get nailed by credit card companies. That's how you get nailed by car companies in terms of car loans and financing your vehicle. The reality is that by the time you're done paying it off 29 years later, I guarantee your car still won't be alive and running unless it happens to be a fantastic car and you took really good care of it. And chances are pretty good you're not going to get $13,000 out of that vehicle. So again, it's important to think about the investment, about maturation, about whether you end up making money with that investment, and making sure you can pay that off in the end. Credit card confusion. One myth that's out there is that all credit cards are bad. I really don't believe that that's true. The reality is that some cards actually pay you back. I know my wife and I use a USAA account. We don't finance things with our credit card. Every month we pay off our full balance. We've never held a balance for more than that month period that we accrue the transactions. We know what's in our bank account, we know what we can spend, and we never, ever, ever charge more than what we can pay off at the end of the month. Also, a credit card will increase your credit score. This will help you when you go to buy a house, when you go to rent a house or an apartment. Some credit card companies will also give you an annual credit statement about what you spent your hard-earned money on. You're also entitled to one free credit report a year at annualcreditreport.com. That's not the jingle that you hear on TV. This is annualcreditreport.com, and they will give you a free credit report to let you know if any lines of credit have been used, what your credit score is, all those important information pieces that you need to know about yourself and your credit history. You don't need more than 2, and you want to hold them for a long time. I still have a credit card that I signed up for back in college. I was actually a huge Cub fan. Sorry if you're a Cardinal fan down here, but I grew up in the Chicagoland, actually southern Michigan, but was a huge Cubs fan, and I signed up for a credit card at a game one day, and I've held that credit card up until this point in my life, quite a bit later for that matter. The reality is it stays in my safe in my house. I never use that credit card, but because I started a credit history and it was a good credit history early on in that time frame, I still have that credit history even now. Even though I'm not using it, even though I've not used it probably for 10 or 15 years, I still get the credit card. It renews itself whenever it's expired. I cut up the old one, put the new one back in my safe, and I've maintained that credit history for that long period of time. And as a result, my credit score is fantastic. So again, think about your credit card. Find a really good one. Find one that pays you back. Don't finance things with it. And save it and use it for a very long time, or freeze it in a block of ice. Do something to maintain that credit score. Again, use a credit card like cash. Only buy what you have money for to pay off every month. If you know that this is a temptation for you, if you know you've gotten in trouble before, my encouragement is to put it in a block of ice, give it to your parents to hold on to, give it to a spouse to hold on your credit card so you're not tempted to swipe at Walmart for impulsive purposes or to buy a new pair of shoes that you don't really need. Don't finance things saying, hey, if I spend $1,000 this month, I'm going to get a credit, or I'm going to get an airline ticket for free. Those are not good uses of that credit card and stewarding that well. So again, use it like cash only, and make sure that you can pay it off at the end of the month. This is a new underwater digital camera, would be great for our trip. Yeah, you're right. Why don't you grab it? I don't have cash right now. Well, just charge it. That's what plastic's for. You know what? I don't think so. I try to pay that bill every month. I can't really afford it, but I can bug my parents about it instead. So again, if you need an impulsive purchase, go ask your folks for something. Don't finance it with a credit card. Credit card confusion continued. If you get a credit card, again, that pays you rewards. Some merchants make money on that. So a merchant, if a bill for buying groceries is $10, the merchant only gets like $9.70 of that, and 30% or 30 cents actually goes to the credit card company for having used that credit card. That's why you see around town or different places, if you pay in cash, you get a discount because the retailer is actually getting all the money for that transaction. Where a credit card, they actually have to give part of it back. That's how they can pay you rewards. That's how they make some extra money for it too. Once you get the card with rewards, use your card for all your normal purchases. So if you go to the gas station or grocery store like you normally would pay cash, use your credit card. But don't buy an unneeded pair of shoes just because you want to rack up frequent flyer miles. Rather every time you buy groceries, movie tickets, gas, or anything you normally would purchase with cash, use your credit card. That's where the budget statement comes in handy. My wife and I both use our credit cards for regular purchases. We always bring home the receipt. It goes in our budget, and then we know within the month, at any given moment, how much money we still have left in that account to spend at the end of the month to be able to pay our bill at the end of the month. So again, you need to be organized to do this well, but I would encourage you. There's a lot of also online opportunities of different companies that will help you manage that. I would encourage you to check some of those out if it's free to use. What if you have several kinds of debt and several kinds of loans to pay off? What do you pay off first? The rule of thumb typically, there's two philosophies. One of them is pay off whatever is the smallest note first. So if you've got $500 on a credit card, pay that off first, because if your student loans are $20,000, it'll help you to then use the payments that you use for that small one to push into your student loan or the larger loan. The reality is the other way that you can look at this is to pay off whatever has the highest interest rate first. So your student loan typically is going to have the lowest, probably followed by your mortgage. Car loans probably the next highest, and I guarantee your credit card will be the highest interest rate. So whatever has the highest interest rate, try to pay that one off first. And typically, whatever has the highest interest rate will oftentimes have the smallest balance due. Not always, but typically. And again, once you pay off whatever it is that's out there with the highest interest rate, you want to take everything that you're paying for that one and put it towards your next highest one until that one gets paid off. And again, it may seem insignificant. It may only be $30 or $100 or whatever a month. But again, every little bit adds up dramatically. In summary, make and keep a budget. Stick to the budget. Be faithful with that budget. It will serve you well. Be patient and get advice. You might look for a financial planner. If you don't have any idea about investments or retirement planning, anything like that, investment advisor or planner is a great way to get started with that. If married, I would encourage you to live on one income and save the other. My wife and I have been very, very diligent about that. She taught for several years and is teaching again. We actually save her salary and we live on mine alone, which also has afforded us the opportunity to support missions. We've been able to give to our alma maters. We've been able to pay cash for all of our vehicles. We've been able to have a really good down payment for our house when we finally ended up buying one because of that. So if you're married, my encouragement is to live on one salary, save the other, and I guarantee you life will be much, much easier because of that. Establish a good credit history. Pay your bills on time. Don't defer on your loans. Don't defer on your credit card statements, but always at least pay the minimum, and if at all possible, pay more than the minimum each month. Don't use credit cards for financing. Use them like cash. New cars are not an investment. They only go down in value, so it's always wise to buy a used car. Again, my wife and I have had several vehicles. Every one of them has been gently used or just have come off of a lease agreement, and as a result, we've done very well in buying cars that have been economical and reasonable and have run for a long time as a result. Think twice about pets, daily lattes, DVDs, CDs, expensive stereo equipment, those things that cost money. Again, it's amazing what we need and what we want. And often what we want sometimes feels like it kind of blurs over that line or drifts over that line into what we need. My encouragement for you is stick to those things that you need and budget that way. Also, pay extra on loans and give back to JBU whenever you can. It will be greatly appreciated. If you have other questions, I want to make sure that you have that opportunity. You're welcome to come by and make an appointment with me and ask those questions. You're welcome to email me with questions. I would be happy to be a resource for you. If you need any of the handouts or would like a budget spreadsheet to work from and to use for your own, I'd be happy to pass along what my wife and I use. Again, Crown Financial or crownfinancial.org, crown.org, sorry. It's www.crown.org is another great resource for those. But please feel free to reach out, and I want to make sure that your questions are answered. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll catch you in another webinar or another workshop.